Welcome back. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer ordering Senate colleagues to return to work instead of going on recess next week in a last-ditch effort to strike a border deal to unlock money for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. The White House urging Congress to, quote, stop dithering while blaming Republicans for, quote, actively undermining our national security interests. Yes, they said that. The House passing the $886 billion defense policy bill yesterday, which includes annual military spending and authorized aid for Ukraine. Joining me right now is Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations, Appropriations, Rules, and Banking Committees. Senator, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. Where do we stand on these border negotiations, sir?
Well, Maria, it's good to be with you this morning as well. And I stand in shock constantly with the White House coming out and saying things as you just reiterated. This is billed overall as a national security package dealing with Ukraine, Israel, parts of it for the Asia Pacific, and money for the border. I want to be clear about this. This isn't about border security. This is about more money to process people more rapidly into America. The greatest national security risk we face right now as a nation is the problem at our southern border. It is a massive violation of our southern border. There's a tidal wave of people coming into our nation. We're being invaded at our southern border. And this White House continues to try to ignore it. Chuck Schumer is not willing to address it in any sort of serious fashion. And Republicans have said no more, particularly after what's happened in the Middle East. The number of people that have come into our country on the terrorist watch list is increasing. Something very, very bad could happen right here on our own soil. The threats have come from Hamas directly now. They're threatening America directly, and we need to be extraordinarily careful about this. But rather than acknowledge that threat, the White House wants to continue to try to ignore the national security crisis at our own border and to try to force us to address national security issues in other nations. We're not going to do it. We're going to focus on our own national security first.
Yeah, I want to get to the threats from Hamas in a moment, but let me stay on this for a second, because what you're telling us is that all of this conversation back and forth about coming up with some kind of an agreement for changes at the border, security policy changes, it's none of that. That the Biden administration is talking about an agreement that they want to send money to Ukraine, money to Israel, money to parts of Asia, but for the border, it's money that they want. That money will be used to build more housing for the migrants coming in. There's no discussion then whatsoever of making border policy changes. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's been discussion about it, but not serious discussion. I've seen no detail on that at all. But what I have seen, the detail that I have seen from the White House, is frankly language that says that they would like the ability to, quote, and I'm going to use Washington speak here, to reprogram all of ICE's budget, to turn it from a law enforcement agency into a resettlement agency. Over $8 billion of their budget, they want the ability to reprogram that. ICE is the only organization that we have in America that can actually send criminals back to their home countries. But rather than use taxpayer money to send these criminals back to their home countries, they want to use taxpayer money to send them, on an airplane ride to a city near you or me. This is absolutely preposterous. It just shows the lunacy of the Biden administration, the fact that they're ignoring our national security. We have children dying here in Tennessee from fentanyl deaths, overdoses every day. They're ignoring this. Yet they talk about the national security of Ukraine, of Israel, of other countries. Yeah. We haven't dealt with our own national security, and we have to.
I mean, it's really rich to hear the administration talk about the Republicans' actions affecting our national security when we've got this wide-open border. And, of course, it's a massive national security risk and threat for America with the drugs coming in and the potential terrorists coming in. Yes. I want to get your take on what Republicans are going to do about it. Are you saying that Republicans will stick together? Will you hold the line and say no to that money to the border until you see actual policy changes?
Maria, we've already done it. Chuck Schumer already brought this, quote, supplemental package to the floor. And 49, all Republicans, 49 of us, voted against it. We sent a very clear message to Chuck Schumer and to his radical left that we are not going to.
Isn't he bringing it back?
He'll get the same result.
Yeah, same result. Okay.
He's going to get the same result. He's going to get
Meanwhile,
the same result.
the administration is pushing back this morning on this Axios report, Senator, claiming that National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu Israel's, quote, high-intensity military operations in Gaza needs to end within weeks, not months. Watch this.
One of the things that Jake did talk to him about was progress in the war and where the Israelis think it's going to go. He did talk about possible transitioning from what we would call high-intensity operations, which is what we're seeing them do now, to lower-intensity operations. Sometime, last thing we'd want to do is telegraph to Hamas what they're likely to face in coming weeks and months.
I don't understand why the United States is telling Israel what to do after it's trying to retaliate from getting an unprovoked attack. We also have these reports that you just mentioned, a senior Hamas official calling for violence against Americans, threatening Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. A recent broadcast, the official says, quote, when Blinken is justifying the killing of women and children, the sons of our nation should say to him, you are the enemy, just like Netanyahu, and you must pay the price. So, Senator, are we now in jeopardy of a potential attack from Hamas on America?
Maria, we've been in jeopardy. If you look at the number of people that have come across our southern border that are on the terrorist watch list, it's rising.
Yeah.
Yet this administration is doing nothing about it. We've got to acknowledge the fact that we're in greater danger. And ever since the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas, we've seen red lights all around the globe in terms of national security threats. We have to wake up and address this. And the Biden administration has been so unserious about it. You look at what Jake Sullivan is doing over there and the way they're reporting it today. This is pinball diplomacy. They just bounce from one bumper to the next, depending on how the polls look here in America. They're trying to appease the radical left of the Democrat Party, who are all pro-Hamas. They don't even understand what they're cheering for. Yet, at the same time, they're trying to act like they're going to be the allies to Israel. What we're doing is we're confusing the situation. To go in and call for a timeline, to actually be dictating in the media of when things would end, when they would not, to telegraph that to Hamas, the enemy of Israel, that is absolutely undercutting Israel's position. We should not be doing this at all. It's just, again, very weak diplomacy, and it's hurting our allies.
Yeah, it's really disturbing, Senator. You also have a Washington Times op-ed out highlighting how Washington is obsessed with former President Trump instead of the American people, and how Congresswoman Liz Cheney is leading the charge to push him out. Tell us more.
Well, I think you see Liz Cheney on a book tour right now, and I think she's just the embodiment of this psychology in Washington, that they would rather see 4 more years of carnage under Joe Biden. They'd rather see more children dying right here in my home state of Tennessee from fentanyl overdoses than to deal with the fact that Donald Trump could come in and upend their world, because he's proven their policies wrong. Under Donald Trump, we had an economy that was growing at twice the pace of every other major economy in the world.
Yeah.
Our borders were secure, our nation was safe. But Donald Trump's tweets are something that they didn't like. It's just amazing to me that you see the Washington establishment say they would rather see 4 more years of Joe Biden than to see Donald Trump back in office.
Why are they so afraid of Trump? I mean, I think because he exposes corruption.
Indeed, he does. And he's got an outsider's perspective. Look,
Yeah.
Donald Trump is a business person. I'm a business person. We have a different perspective. We want to see things get done. This is not about the perpetuation of some sort of policy mechanism and organizations in Washington that continue to thrive decade after decade. This is about winning for America. This is about winning for our allies. Trump knows how to do this. This seems to be lost in the minds and hearts of so many of these people that are in the Washington permanent establishment.
Senator, great that you are there. We'll be watching your leadership. We so appreciate you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Maria.